You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm Eleanor Rust, Marketing Director at Rock Paper Scissors, the PR firm that specializes in music innovation and music technology. In recent podcast episodes, Tristra and Dimitri gave some takeaways and recaps of our Music Tectonics Conference in October. Today, I'm bringing you into a breakout session so you can sit in on one of the most popular conference panels. Gaming is the new venue brought together four folks who are working at the center of the evolving relationship between music and games, whether they are soundtracking gameplay or creating virtual in-game concerts. You'll hear the voices of moderator Karen Allen, CEO of Infinite Album, Gavin Johnson, head of gaming at Monstercat, Summer Watson, president of Y Media Company, and Becky Wilson, vice president of BizDev at Melon. And now, over to Karen Allen at the Music Tectonics Conference.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited about this panel. We have a really interesting group of people here, so thanks to Music Tectonics for putting such a great roster of people together. I'll talk a little bit about what Infinite Album does, and then we'll go down and get a good beat from each one of these panelists of where they're coming from on this. So Infinite Album is an AI music company. We do infinite streams of copyright-safe, game-reactive, and monetizable music for Twitch streamers. That's sort of phase one of what we do. We are different from a lot of AI music companies because you can't just go to our site and make a minute-long piece of music. We are an infinite stream. We sort of built this for Twitch streamers so they could stream for as long as they wanted and have music that constantly changed. It's monetizable through Twitch because Twitch has bits, which is their currency, so viewers can spend bits to then change music in real time. We're scaling up to go to games at large, and we are creating what we call music as a virtual good. So you'll be able to go into the Fortnite store, the Roblox store, Epic Marketplace, any number of game stores, buy music off the rack. That would be an infinite stream as a game soundtrack replacement, or make your own while you're there. And for now, it's all of our own sounds and music. Eventually, we'll start working with artists to create sound packs for us, so it will create music infinitely in their style. The fun part is that people can actually export their vibes. We call them vibes, not songs. They can export their vibes and sell them to other gamers. So we're actually creating a secondary marketplace for AI music. So it's pretty exciting what we have going on. But I'm super psyched to get to the rest of our panel. Gavin, do you want to tell everybody what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Gavin. I'm the head of gaming at Monstercat. I've been at the company, the record label, for almost 11 years now. We're one of the leading EDM independent record labels globally. We have a very strong presence within gaming, which is why we're here. I handle all the sync and partnerships on the gaming side. We set up long-term partnerships. It first started out with content creators and then expanded to esports teams and various gaming companies. But now a lot of our focus is within the game developer and publisher realm. So we have long-term partnerships set up with Rocket League, Fortnite, Beat Saber, and Hi-Res Studios and various other game developers and publishers, which we'll speak on shortly.
And I'm Summer Watson. I'm a partner president of a company called Volume 1 Music, which develops young pop artists in a joint venture with Epic Records, and also the president and co-founder of Y Media Company, which is home to a young character named Aku, AKU, which we launched last February as an NFT. I started my career in free-to-play games at a company called Playdom, which we sold to Disney in 2011.
Hi, I'm Becky Wilson. I'm the VP of Business Development at Melon. Melon is a premier metaverse gaming studio, and we currently specialize on building on the Roblox platform. We were the first gaming studio to ever do a virtual concert on the platform with Ava Max, and we've done the most amount of virtual concerts versus like any other developer at this point. But I have an interesting past because I actually started my career as the head of music at Urban Outfitters. So I came from the retail space and then transferred over into this digital space and love it, and love building video games and incorporating music into it.
Great. is it me or is music and gaming having a moment right now? I feel like in the last month or two, at the very least, it's sort of been a whole thing. Obviously, concerts and Roblox and Fortnite have been making headlines for the past probably 2 years now. AI music in particular is having a massive moment. I feel like Midjourney and DALL-E and all the visual part of that has really opened people's eyes to what's possible with visuals. Shutterstock just did a massive deal with OpenAI, for example. So they're actually going to be selling AI art and compensating the artists whose art was used to train the AI, which is interesting. And that sort of turns on to like what's possible with music. So I feel like I'm seeing a lot of competition for myself in this space, to be honest. And now we have a Grammy for game music. How bonkers is that? It's really insane. So I feel like it's really sort of coming into its own in terms of, you know, not just soundtracks anymore. Like, what's your general thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to get started, music and gaming is definitely having a major moment right now and will continue to do so for many years. I think it really accelerated with the pandemic because when COVID really started ramping up, we lost touring for 2 straight years. And with the loss of touring, artists and record labels and various rights holders needed to find another way to sort of recoup. And the artists themselves really needed to find another way to recoup the revenue that they were losing. And the best form of media to really find an engaging medium for music is gaming. I mean, this is where it's the primary form of consumption, like for the younger generation right now. So for Monstercat, I mean, we've been working in gaming for the past 11 years, but we've done a lot of our major deals and a lot of our major partnerships within the past 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. And it was a perfect marriage because gaming also ramped up really hard with the pandemic. So within the past 2 years, we've done things such as concerts, we've done Fortnite concerts, various forms of DLCs, radio stations within various games like Rocket League. We've even dabbled into things such as battle passes, both based on the Monstercat brand and also importing artists as playable characters within games and having engaging forms of like when you're casting the abilities and your ultimates, like the music is incorporated in that as well. So we've been able to really be as fully creative as possible within gaming with the rise of the pandemic. And I think we're going to keep seeing that being pushed more and more now that we've really reached this foundation for how music can be experienced within games and with the technology also improving as well. So yeah, we're going to keep seeing this big push as we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think to Gavin's point, games have been a place for consumption for a while now. They've always been social networks. Some of our early social networks in the form of MMOs, and I know probably several people in the room have stories they can tell of kids in their lives who are exchanging not phone numbers and Instagram handles, but how to meet in Roblox and Fortnite. These have been places that people have been gathering for years, and I know for me, for most of my entire life. So it's only natural that we treat them as worlds where people can discover music and interact with musicians and artists, and we've seen a lot of that. I think some of the areas that I get really excited, just having worked with creators my entire career, is a lot of the interesting things happening on the creation side, and really just giving a set of tools for people to rethink how they not only create music, but even potentially share music. There's, in the NFT world, I know a very different world, but there's some really interesting things happening, like there's a company called Async Art that's always been really pushing the edge of what you can do with the blockchain, and just thinking about how people can create music, create stems, share their stems, and if you're familiar with like the notion of generative art, or even the way that people have created these collections that are pieces of art put together in different ways. There's things that can be done there on the audio side, either on its own or in connection with the visual art. So super excited to see how that will get pushed as more and more creative people come into the space, and frankly that we can break down some of the barriers of how people have been pitched NFTs or the metaverse to date. There's just a lot that actually can be really useful and fun when we break through some of the jargon and get back to the basics of what people want to do and how people have fun. And that's what I've been creating my entire career. So super excited, in particular on the creation side, and how that opens up just new forms of creations.
I think from my point of view, what's really interesting is on an open platform like Roblox, how it expands the potential reach of fans to be able to go and attend a virtual concert without the barrier of money, quite frankly. I also think it's really great in gaming to be able to fully actualize the artist's vision of what that song means and translate that into an immersive experience for the players.
So I'm curious, at this point, if an artist wants to work with the game in some way besides just a sync, do they have to be an established artist on a label with someone who has the power to call a game? What are the games looking for when they're looking for an artist to work with? I'm just kind of curious, is this at this point only for, artists who can fill theaters and above? Or is this sort of becoming more democratized for any artist to find a way to jump in? Like I know Fortnite, for example, their kind of long term is to give any artist a chance to create something on the platform. But I think now if I were managing an artist and I wanted them to do something on Fortnite, I mean, you could tell me, Becky, but it's a pretty heavy lift to create those experiences. So I'm curious, mostly from Becky and Gavin, like, do you have to have the heft of a label and tens of millions streams on Spotify and a really strong TikTok or really strong Instagram before the games even want to talk to you?
Yeah, sure, I'll start. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is no. You can be an artist of any size and really go into any sort of major activation within a video game. At the end of the day, though, it's really going to depend on what the goals of the video game itself is. Some video games and publishers, they really want the biggest artist possible. They want the biggest flash in the pan activation as humanly possible, because at the end of the day, they want to market the game in that short period of time within music there. But there are other titles which are huge titles, such as Rocket League, which is experienced by over 100 million players, hundreds of thousands of players every single day, where they're starting to build out their title as a pillar of music discovery, where music discovery is a fundamental piece of the game and a strategy for the entire company. So with Rocket League specifically, we've been ingesting tons of music on a recurring basis within the game, and at Monstercat, we release artists of all sizes. These could be bedroom producers that are just starting out, to the AAAs such as Marshmello and Cascade, which we've both put within Rocket League. And we're putting music within Rocket League at the same time as we're putting the music within the game. So we're treating Rocket League as a distribution platform, just as you distribute music to Spotify. And with that, Rocket League wants to become part of the artists' identities and their stories. So it's actually a huge benefit for the game to blow up a smaller act. So they have an A&R team, just as you would an A&R team at a record label. And they are really trying to find, okay, like who sounds great, who has a great story, who has a great brand, where are they going? And they'll actually put the resources into the artists, similar as they do the record labels. So you can almost think of it as like games are wanting to become more record labels, and record labels are trying to become more like games. So now more than ever, I find that games are wanting to invest in the smaller acts and build them, just as a record label would.
Do you think the games are going to want to release music themselves and become a record label, or do you think they're happy just to license?
Absolutely. Riot Games is actually a great example of that. Riot Games just launched Riot Music Group. They've been kind of running it as an internal team for some years, but they're now releasing music under the Riot Music Group label. But there could be a lot of other titles that kind of have like record label like marketing abilities and functions, but they might not dabble as a record label, but they definitely want to be as part of on the investment side, and also a part of the stories as a record label would.
I feel like a lot of companies outside the music industry underestimate the complexities of what it means to sign an artist and be responsible for their success in that way. And they think of it just in terms of like the section that they could do. But, what about everything else? What about all the paid marketing campaigns? What about, the YouTube launches? Like, what about all the things that they're not experts in? Becky, I'm curious, what's the bar for doing a deal with you? And do you think, if it's a huge bar, do you think it's going to lower?
I think it depends on what the label and management is looking for in terms of integration into gaming. If you are talking about building a full avatar-based performance, the production timeline on that is easily 6 months to a year. And there is quite a hefty price tag attached to that because there's a lot that goes into it. And I think labels and management are more open to funding an artist that is a bigger caliber with an investment that large and time investment because they know based on previous history that there will be payback in some sense. But I do think for developing artists, there is, like what Gavin was saying, there's integration from a sync perspective that will help with discovery, and that is a lower lift and easily being able to be like incorporated into a game.
I guess Wave might be that sort of middle ground, right? If you're not familiar with Wave XR, they take artists and give them full motion body capture suits. Full body motion capture suits. And then they make an avatar out of that. They put the whole thing on an Unreal Engine. So it's a lot like what they're doing, just a sort of easier way of doing it and a quicker way of doing it. And they've got a bunch of worlds that are kind of ready to go. But they'll make a world for a John Legend or a Lindsey Sterling or something that's, big enough to warrant that. They are on all the live stream platforms, definitely Twitch. They did a massive thing with The Weeknd on TikTok about, I want to say, a year and a half ago. That was really huge and broke, actually, a little bit because it was so big. But that might be the mid-range between what you're talking about and like the average person. But, the one thing I love about Twitch so much, and I've got a big background with Twitch. I've never worked with Twitch, but I wrote a book called Twitch for Musicians. It came out before the pandemic, and I've been streaming on Twitch for my clients since about 2018 or so. And I love the democratization of it, that anybody can stream whatever they want with almost no resources, very, very little overhead, and off you go. And it's just a bunch of like grit, basically, to go off and do it. And I was really shocked at how big the music category was on Twitch, of just musicians, independent musicians, performing on Twitch. It's free to perform, it's free to watch. It works a little bit like gaming. It's, if you want to have fun, you pay. But you don't have to pay anything to have fun, and having fun is things like subscribing and getting all the custom emoji, or it's, tipping and seeing little animations on screen, or requesting a song and putting money on that. It's sort of a way for music to work its way into the gaming world at large. Actually, some of the musicians on there have gotten really big because big gamers have raided them. And a raid is when your stream ends, you can push all of that traffic into another channel all at once. Which is kind of like gifting your audience to another channel. There's one in particular I can think of who was doing probably 200 average concurrents, which was good. That's like really good for a music streamer, and actually most game streamers too. And they got rated by a really big Spanish gamer. And the guy happened to speak Spanish, like Spain, but he's actually I'm sorry, I think he spoke Portuguese. Anyway, he spoke the language sort of coincidentally, and all this gamer's audience just lost their minds. And ever since then, he's been like 1,000, 1,200 concurrents, which if I could ballpark it, I would say he's probably doing over $100,000 a year if he can maintain that easily, which is not bad for a guy you've never heard of and probably never will, who doesn't care if you ever heard of him because he's doing just fine on Twitch. Thank you very much. So it's sort of incredible how, even in these sort of gaming environments where it's not really even intended for music, it's sort of like the weed coming through the sidewalk and finding its way and everything. Anyway, let's talk about licensing. What do you feel like is broken or working with licensing? What do you feel is maybe the blockers that games have, or even labels have? And I don't mean just syncs for putting songs on radio. I mean, when you're doing these deals, what are the major hurdles that you feel need to be crossed, and what are maybe some solutions for that?
Sure. Yeah, there's a few things to break down here. One of it, I mean, at the end of the day, rights are incredibly difficult to overcome and still are. I mean, even though it could be just a sync, the sync portion of maybe a larger deal, whether it be a brand deal or a concert or some sort of really deep integrated music experience, can be completely blocked creatively on the rights portion, particularly within the composition slash publishing rights, because on the composition side, you can have a million different writers, different band members. You could have different major publishers on each individual record that all want their own deals. They all have their own blockers and non-starters and precedents that they don't want to break. So it's a really difficult challenge when you're dealing with, especially hit records that have so many. You could have like 20 writers on a record, on a hit record. So it's really difficult to overcome that challenge. We try the best we can at Monstercat to solve that by having the mastering and publishing fully controlled on the majority of our catalog, which allows for full creativity within the deals that we do. But we're still a very long way from the industry at large, sort of like breaking down their barriers so that we're more artist first when approaching deals within the gaming space, and also preparing for the future of media within games, whether it be metaverses, their platforms, the games themselves. We need to understand that games now have a 10 to 15 to 20 year life cycle that we need to prepare for. So those are things that we're really thinking about and trying to solve at Monstercat, because we can do that with the records we control, but we also have a ton of other records that we don't fully control that we need to navigate. So the rights issue is a challenge. The other major issue that we deal with is just education process. I mean, we've been dealing with this for the past 10 years, just like trying to really educate the artists, the artist teams, like their managers, the agents, everybody that's involved from the entire chain that like, hey, this is gonna really benefit you. These are the case studies of why we think this is very beneficial. This is where consumption is going, especially with younger audiences. Because a lot of the times, like it's really difficult for maybe people who have been in the industry very long, that are used to different ways, to really adopt new media such as gaming and other various forms of media that are developing, such as Web3, which is a big one that's upcoming, that's very important, and will also intertwine within gaming in a big way in the future. So those are probably the two biggest blockers currently, but of course, another major blocker is just getting all of the stakeholders within a certain project on board, because like once you get everybody looped in on a project, it's the artist teams, it's the record label, it's the game developers and publishers themselves, which have their own timelines and various challenges to deal with, such as internal development timelines and whatever engine they're on. There's all these hurdles that you have to do to like create the perfect storm of chaos and bring it into a fully functioning project. So yeah, those are the major things you need to watch out for. There's of course another black hole of things such as content ID you need to overcome. So yeah, all stuff we're trying to solve here at the company.
Do the game companies just, when they hear this stuff, just like go screaming away and be like, forget it?
A lot of gaming companies just won't touch music for sure, but I think it's going to improve over time. I think we're going to see a lot of technological developments. People are learning that like gaming is here. It's a way to get your music heard. It's one of the deepest ways of engagement for your music as well, and for you to be discovered and adopted as an artist for new fans. So yeah, it's certainly improving, but we still have all these like ancient issues that we need to solve for within the music industry for sure.
Yeah, and I've tackled that problem from the other side at gaming companies, including I was at Episode and we put out a game with the Pitch Perfect movie. So as you can imagine, a ton of music needed to go into that. And the biggest challenge really is the business operations, just the manualness of it. There's the web of people who own the rights, getting to them, knowing who they are, getting their approval. And frankly, there were times when we had experts putting it all together, and then it came down to like personal relationship, right? And hey, Summer, I think you know this person, can you call this person? And we'd run the gamut from, on one end, games being, frankly, some of the more affordable syncs that I've seen, to somebody just getting the rights from every single person on the song except for the one person who came and said, yes, if you give me 5% of the equity of the company, right? So there's very little predictability, and so for a game, especially trying to hit a timeline of releasing, especially something as high level as we had with a big IP, to really make sure we hit those dates and can take advantage of the marketing that would come with it, that unpredictability could be a real blocker to us wanting to go and do that again and again, like at scale especially, right? Getting all the way deep and incorporating a song into the core of the game, into the core of the story around the game, and then finding out that you can't use it, that just blows your development timelines. So there's challenges on both sides. I've been on both sides, obviously, and as a technologist, the number one thing I'm looking forward to is when we can break down some of the email chains that come around this, right? Because a lot of this actually could be committed to a database, whether it's open or not, to make it much easier to find people, to understand what their constraints may be, to maybe not even approach them or get wedded to a particular song in the first place. So that feels like a huge challenge, bringing the two together.
Yeah, and it's more than just licensing for, playing a song in the game, right? There's lots of ways to monetize that. Like Gavin just talked about doing virtual goods around some of the artists. So that must really complicate it even more, or maybe even help. I mean, if you are doing also a virtual good deal on top of everything else, or other kind of monetization within the game, does that help the licensing conversation at all?
It definitely can. If there's benefits beyond the sync that will benefit the artist, that's definitely helps the conversation. I mean, sync is just like, and the music rights are just one of the hurdles that you can get over. But if you're starting including things such as IP, like for example, if the artist is being put as a playable character within the game, or there's other ways that the music will be promoted beyond the title. Sometimes you can work with the platforms themselves, such as like an Xbox or a PlayStation. Maybe they are going to boost a playlist that will be on the front of the page that will boost the record, or there's going to be some sort of very creative piece of content, like a cinematic or a trailer that will be promoted, or if there's maybe external activations that will happen as well that they can tack on, where like maybe an artist is going to be playing the World Championship halftime show for a particular title in its esports tournament. There's huge ways that you can really scale a deal to make like the things such as the sync, which should be a lot simpler, but it can sweeten the deal for everybody involved when you start creating an entire package around a particular project.
Sure. Becky, what do you run up against when you're working with labels and managers and trying to get them to do these sort of like larger activations within Roblox, and I'm assuming, other metaverses as you grow? What are the sort of the regular pain points that keep coming up, and how have you found best to overcome them?
I think it's everything that Gavin and Summer kind of already said. I think the biggest pain that I've noticed, especially when you're working with the major labels, is this is like a new frontier for them, and none of them want to necessarily take the risk.
What do they want? Do they want promotion? Do they want money? Like, what's more important?
They want both, and that's the struggle. Because right now, the way that Roblox is set up and the monetization and I think there's ways to get both, but from what has been done on the platform, it's really been one or the other. And so you have their sales team that definitely want to monetize the event, they want to make the money back, but then you have a bigger story of marketing and impressions. Like, the most amazing thing about Roblox is they just released their September actuals, and they have a daily active audience of 57+ million. It's massive. And so there is a wide reach there, and a way to build like an early fan, I guess is the way that I'll say that nicely. But that's the struggle, is the labels, it's new for them. So they don't always see the benefit, and then they don't want to be necessarily the first ones to try. And so that's been the biggest struggle from my point of view on the development side.
Let's talk about metaverses. I saw some stats recently that kind of blew my mind. I was on Bill Wordy's Full Rate No Cap. If you're not on that newsletter, it's really, really cool. Bill Wordy used to be editor-in-chief at Billboard magazine, and now he's running the Bandier program music program at Syracuse University, and he can't help it write because he's a writer. So he has a newsletter called Full Rate No Cap, where he reads everything and distills it for you in a little, thing every day. It's great. Anyway, so he found this stuff. DAP Radar says that the Sandbox and Decentraland have less than 1,000 daily active users. And they define daily active users as people who come every day and make a transaction, which honestly is kind of a high bar for a daily active user. So Decentraland pushed back on that and said, no, we have 8,000 daily active users, which still seems to me to be really low, because doesn't Decentraland have like tens of millions of users they claim? I'm pretty sure it's that high. I know Sandbox certainly is somewhere in like the low tens of millions of users that they claim they have. So that was one thing that came up. And then the Wall Street Journal says that Meta's Horizon Worlds has 200,000 monthly active users. Their target was 500,000, but most don't return after the first month, and only 9% of the worlds are visited by at least 50 people. So we contrast that, and these are metaverse games, metaverse environments. Contrast that with what's happening on Roblox, which is a metaverse as well. And Minecraft, which is a metaverse. So is this new metaverse, these new metaverse games, is this just fluff? Like, is there a there? Do you think any of the traffic that is happening so much on Minecraft and Roblox and so forth is ever going to find its way to these other metaverses? Or is this, why are they so popular and these new ones aren't? Is it first mover status? Is it just a better experience? I'm really curious what your guys' take on metaverses.
I do think, like, just real quickly, is Roblox is not new. And I feel like people forget that, like, because it just recently became really popular as a term and everyone knows what it is. But they've been building their audience for, I believe, over 10 years. And same thing with Minecraft. And so Sandbox really became public during the pandemic, so it's like a year or two. I think part of it is they're just growing. They're in chapter 1 of their book and their story, and Roblox is probably like a little bit more farther along in the storyline.
I could talk about this for a long time, but I would start with, it's one of my least favorite terms, in part because I don't know what it is, and I don't know that anybody knows what it is. It's like one of those jargon things to me that's thrown out. Yesterday, someone described it to me as being VR. A lot of people I know think of it as being this like magical place where everything is connected. But today, like you just said, right? X is a metaverse, X is a meta. No, those are universes. If you're thinking of a metaverse as all connected, and I can take my digital goods from one Unreal built game to another, or even better, outside of Unreal to another universe, like that would be then metaverse in the way people are thinking of that decentralized. And I come from a place where building games, and we're talking about millions of DAUs. So to me, those are the kinds of things that get me excited, is touching a lot of people in really big and meaningful ways. And so, yeah, it's early for sure. Coming in the space for Aku that we came out of, almost immediately people came to us and said, when's the game? You're going to build a game, right? You're going to raise a bunch of money to build a game or a metaverse. And being a gamer and someone who's built games, immediately pushed back on that as deep as I could. For us, we're building an IP, and it's not a bull run cycle thing. It's not a NFT thing. NFTs for us is one channel of distribution. It was the first way that Aku was introduced, but there's much more that we're doing. Games can be one, and if and when it is, I'm not building a game studio to build our own game. I would love for it to be an Aku world within Fortnite, or for us to work really closely with a game studio who is expert at building these, which I know to be very difficult experiences to build, to be lasting and have that be a really deep partnership. But I think the starting with like what is a metaverse is just a fundamental thing that we all need to think and really speak honestly about. We talk about at Aku an Akuverse, which will straddle everything from in real life. We've done huge installations in real life, exhibits, bringing 30,000 people together around Aku. We do digital, obviously, in the way that we introduced Aku through short animated videos. You'll see here shortly, very, very shortly, we have built a small world, really NFT gallery for our audience in Unreal and physical. So we've built in Unreal from day one, very strategically for us. We want to be able to build these incredibly high quality assets that we can then reuse in a lot of different places. So as one example, we built, if you look at the last few chapters, we did 10 chapters of Aku when we launched him. He's wearing a yellow backpack in almost every episode, but in the last 2 chapters, he's wearing a backpack that was actually designed by Pusha T. He designed it for our physical exhibit at Art Basel last year. And so that same asset that started out as being designed for a physical piece ended up in a hologram within our physical space in Art Basel. You could pre-order it, have the physical piece sent to you, and then the very same backpack is appearing on Aku in a chapter. So to me, that feels like our universe, and great if it can be connected to other ones, especially other ones being built on Unreal, and potentially that becomes the beginning of a metaverse, of being able to move assets between different worlds. Yeah. But I think today it's premature to talk about what it is if people are really using it. VR hasn't taken off for quite a while.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of the new metaverse games are very NFT based, like all the virtual worlds are NFTs. And I know for sure gamers on Twitch don't want anything to do with NFTs. Yep. I can't even mention it. If I even have any sniff of NFT on my company, I will not get users on Twitch.
I'm with them.
So I'm wondering if that is sort of like soiling it a little bit for metaverse games. And while she answers, or anybody answers that question, we're going to take questions. So just raise your hand and Sarah will find you.
Oh, one for me?
Anybody who wants to address that while she's finding someone to answer a question.
Okay, yeah, so just I'll try to keep it quick. Yeah, it's games. It's whatever games it is, whatever qualifier you put before, it's a game. It has to be fun first. And I think the struggle that's come with crypto games, blockchain games, NFT games, however it's described at the most base, not everybody obviously, but for the general audience, it's like NFT first. And it's how do I play to earn or make money? Let's make sure the game is fun first. And we struggled with the same thing in the early days of play to free to play, when people thought you're making people grind and you're destroying games. And I think our company tried to go about it a different way, where we brought in a lot of classic and frankly legendary sometimes game designers and said, help us create a fun game, and then we'll optimize it with these free-to-play mechanics. And it's a different business model, but that's the business model. That's not the game. Let's design the fun first, and I think it solves a lot of other problems.
Great. Okay, we're going to take our first audience question.
Hey, my name is Harrison. I have a quick question just about NFTs, since we're already on that topic. Do you think that NFTs are a thing of the past, or that there will be a thing of the past? Do you think that the name might just evolve and there's going to be more utility behind that? And then a follow-up to that would just be, if you do believe that they will remain in some capacity, how do we shake the stigma around the negative name NFT?
Yeah, I mean, the name definitely doesn't help. I've been wanting to not use that name since day one. I was first introduced to NFTs in like 2017 or so through CryptoKitties, and to me, it didn't make sense at the time. It wasn't that CryptoKitties hadn't done a great thing. It's just for me, I thought, I'm always thinking about the audience, and I thought, I don't know how anyone's going to understand this right now, how it's really going to go anywhere. So short answer is, I don't believe that what we've seen in the last year will be what we see in the future. But I do believe that digital assets and digital goods, digital collectibles that you can own will be a thing, and it's on people who want to build things to make that make sense and to fit into people's lives. I think we should always be looking at how to meet people where they are, even if it's, a couple steps ahead, but not try to force people into something that they don't need in their lives or that doesn't bring enjoyment to their lives. And so back to my free-to-play games, those were digital goods. I remember when we were having some early conversations with people who were not involved in our day-to-day, and they said, you guys are crazy. We don't understand. Why would anyone spend money on this virtual Christmas tree? This is stupid. Years later, we're seeing it as a thing. Now the next step is I can actually own this thing, like truly own it and see it in my wallet and potentially use it for other things, whether in a game or even at worst, it's a keepsake for a good time I had before that game got shut down. Those were some of my hardest days. And those days is when we had to shut down a game because it wasn't performing for us anymore as a business. But I knew that people had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. And that just went nowhere the day we shut it down. So I think there's something, and I think we've seen a lot of excitement recently, obviously around Reddit, and a lot of credit given to Reddit not using that terminology, which I love and I was always excited about, but I don't think that's necessarily why it took off. It's not just changing the name that made it take off. And for anyone that doesn't know, they integrated technically NFTs into their platform and were able to onboard 3 million new wallets using that.
Okay, we have another, might be our last question, but I'll go ahead. There you go.
Hi, my name is Sam. It does seem like every few months we hear news that kind of pits music against gaming in the sense of like takedown notices or, licensing is a huge issue like you've talked about. And it seems like usually it's a large artist or a label like Monstercat who can overcome those types of things to get music and gaming harmonious. What are ways that small or indie or like the long tail of musicians who care about music and gaming and want to get their music into gaming create that relationship? Are there ways, are there distribution channels that they can take advantage of, or is it really like a bespoke custom deal type of thing for most situations, or just serendipity? Are there ways that if I'm an indie artist, I can approach, Roblox? What are those things out there?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of opportunity out there where I think people are not looking, especially independent artists or newer artists or labels that are looking to break into the gaming space. Something that's interesting is that indies, like independent game developers, are being funded more than ever before. A lot of AAAs and large gaming companies are realizing that, hey, I don't want to spend $300 million on one single game anymore. So they will go and fund a bunch of indie developers to sort of hedge their investments. And that's why we're seeing a lot of growth, particularly within the indie space. I'm also noticing a lot of government bodies are investing in indie developers more than ever before. And a lot of these indies want just as good as music as a lot of the AAA developers are making right now. So I think you could just do you could go to a lot of events such as PAX or an E3 or ways where you can, or areas where you can find indie developers, or you can just reach out to them over the internet and just see hey, what are your music goals? Are you looking for music? I'm not sure what context of music you're speaking of. Maybe it's compositions, like bespoke compositions, or you're a rights holder or something. But either way, I think you could reach out to a lot of indie developers right now that are looking for quality music. In the context of Roblox, you could reach out to independent experiences, because Roblox is a platform where it's independent experiences created by independent development teams. It's just a platform to build on. And you can go and directly reach out to them and say, hey, are you looking for bespoke music? They actually integrated a feature recently which allows you to upload music just for specific experiences, where in the past it used to be, if you upload music, it's available for all developers. So now there could be a new avenue to reach out to these experiences independently and say, hey, I want to make your new soundtrack. And I'm sure there's a lot of more upcoming experiences that would really want that. So.
Cool. I think our time is up. We didn't even get to TikTok gaming, which I'm just going to leave you with this thought. It's the sleeping giant of gaming. Do your own research on that one. But thank you all for coming. I hope you learned a lot. I certainly did. And I'll hand it back to Sarah.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know? You can dig deeper into all our episodes with the show notes at musictectonics.com. While you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference, sign up for our newsletter to get updates, or get the Music Tectonics app for music tech news. Everything we do explores seismic shifts that shake up music and technology the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Dmitry Vitsa, if you can spell it, on LinkedIn. Bye-bye!
You're listening to Music Tectonics.